This week on the Business of Real Estate, we are talking unique value proposition. Do you know why you are the best realtor for your client? If not, well, today, hopefully, we're going to help you with that on the Business of Real Estate podcast with Lynn Hoffmann and Eric Johnson. Okay, folks, so this week we are talking unique value proposition. And Lynn, you and I have talked about this. I mean, we know that there are a lot of realtors that really don't do a good job at this. Some of them are amazing at it, but I would say the majority of people really can't formulate why they are the best person, other than saying, I really care about my clients. And everybody says that, so that's not unique.
Right.
Right? So your initial thoughts on this topic?
Well, a lot of people will go out there and say, I'm number one. And there's a lot of number ones out there. And the problem with that is that the consumer doesn't understand what that means. They don't understand rankings in many different brokerages. They just don't understand that. And they really don't care that you're number one. They care that they're number one in your eyes. So that's important. Mm-hmm. So what is it about you that makes you you, or makes you so unique, or why you're confident that you're going to do the best job for these clients better than anybody else can do? And a lot of that comes down to the technical aspect of it and the educational aspect of what you do, but it also comes down to your personality as well and how you're wired to work with your client base. You attract, everybody does, attract a certain type of person. Mm-hmm. If you're an analytical person, you tend to attract more engineers or accountants or things like that. If you're a musician and you're part-time, your life, that's what you love, you might get more
artsy people?
Artsy people, that's the right word. I was going to say hippies, but artsy person is probably the right word. So again, you just need to figure out what your value proposition is, and then don't try to change it, just embrace it and make it better. So I think that's what Eric and I are going to talk about today, is how you can do that.
You know, you said it, that's who you are. And I think when you are trying to be everything to everyone, you're being nothing to everyone.
Anybody.
right? Because it is about, this is who you are. And you'll find that when you look at all your connections on social media, when you look at your friends and family, your sphere of influence, you're going to find that there's commonalities there. I mean, we typically hang around people that are like us. I find that most realtors are dealing with people plus or minus 10 years their own age. That's just very common because there's that, sameness, likeness. But now, how do we stand in that sea of sameness? How do you stand out? How do you become the one that, you're my person? When it comes to real estate, you are the one they go to. And that's when you have to be comfortable saying, here's my unique value proposition. Here's who I am and what I'm about. You know what? Some people are going to say, I'm not that. If you're a luxury agent and you're focused on luxury, then yeah, there's going to be those low-end homes. Those people go, I can't work with that person. They're not right for me. Whatever it is, there's those clients you're not going to get, and that's okay because we know we can't serve everybody. When you look at your city where you're working, you're lucky if you can work with 1 out of every 100 people. I say to agents all the time, Lynn, sales funnel is shaped a certain way. It's a cone, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people come in the top, but only a few drop out at the bottom. Right. And some people will flip out of our sales funnel. We hope that the majority of them stay in and work their way down, but not everybody's meant to be in our funnel, and that's okay. And so you wanted, as you said, it's making a proposition that says, here's who I am, here's what my business is about, and if you fit, great. I want to work with you, and that's key. I think is making sure that you're being true to yourself, and making sure that you're focused on the right people, the people that you want, your ideal client, and not just anybody and everybody.
Yes. Yes, for sure, because you'll frustrate yourself if you try to do that and you won't do a good job of it. I think the two words that I wrote down out of that, what Eric just says, was that you relate to and are relatable to you. So if you've always done luxury properties, and I mean very high-end luxury properties, and you've lived that life yourself, then walking the beat in a neighborhood where the kids are all 3 to 5 years old is probably not your shtick. It's probably not where you're going to fit in. It's not where you're going to be the most relatable to people. That's what I'm trying to say there. I mean, you can fit yourself in anywhere, but where are you going to be the most relatable to other people? What is your personality style? What do you like to do the best? Are you a great negotiator? Are you a great staging person, listing person? You'd love to do the technology, the videos and all that stuff. Is that where you shine the most? But you have to figure out where you shine the most. Do you love dogs? Are you a musician? Are you an artist? What you do in your personal life makes you very relatable to people you meet in your business life. And I think that so many times people are trying to put a square peg in a round hole instead of just working with the same like-minded people that already have a commonality in place that just makes it even easier and more natural and authentic to build that relationship with. Does that make sense to everybody?
No, definitely. And you know, when we're talking about this unique value proposition, it is what you bring to the table. So there is that part of, you know, here's the type of people I'm comfortable working with. And so for me, it's always about identifying my ideal client. And so once I know my ideal client, then I want to look at what are their needs, their wants, and what problems do they have that I can help them solve. Because when it comes to my unique value propositions, or you'll hear us say UVP, but it's really about these are the things that help solve the problems they have, or it addresses the needs and wants. And when we say unique, it is making sure that, you know, if everybody in your area is doing the same thing. So if everybody was doing high quality photographs, then that's not a unique value proposition.
That's
I'm
right.
sorry, it's great, but it seems to be the standard. So that's a standard set in your area. So what's you know, maybe you do something a little bit unique. So maybe you're doing like the, you know, using a 3D camera. So now it's like, man, people can just, it's not just high quality high res photos, but it's now the full 3D. You know, we see more and more drones now. That used to be a unique value proposition, not so much anymore, but there's lots of things that you do that, you know, most other realtors don't. And so now that becomes a unique value proposition. And I do want to preface, we were talking about this before we started filming this episode, was that, you know, this is not just for you, the individual agent, but this is for you, the team leader, and you, the brokerage owner. Because each one of you needs to have a unique value proposition. If you're a team leader, you need to show value. If you don't have value, then people aren't going to stay on your team and you'll have a revolving door. So, you know, if you do see a bit of a revolving door on your team, then you got to stop and look at what's my value and what's my value proposition here to the team members or potential team members.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that clearly defined, then they're not going to see it. And so that's why you have that revolving door. If you are an individual agent and you're going out on a lot of appointments, but you're not getting a lot of those you're not winning a lot of those appointments, there's something about your value proposition. They don't see the value in what you're bringing to the table. Because I can get somebody else to do it, maybe for a little bit less, or they do a little bit more. So understand that value proposition. And then we were talking in the last episode that in Ontario, here in Canada, we did have, we've seen a change in our forms, and that agents now in their Schedule A, they now need to list all the services. So it's a great opportunity I like it. I know a lot of agents are like, oh, they were supposed to have been doing this before anyways. Now it's being mandated. But it does make them think about what they are providing and what level of service are they giving their clients.
Yeah.
And to me, I just think it's a great idea because it's really going to make people think about this, which I think that's why this is a timely topic.
It is, all of the above. And I think it's just that schedule that we have here, as Eric just said. It should help you articulate the things that you do. Think of a chef in a kitchen. You throw a whole bunch of stuff together, but when you ask him what did he put in there, he might not remember, right? You guys are very similar. You put a whole bunch of things into what you do. Do you always sit down and remember every little detail of it? Probably not. So this has forced people to articulate what they do for the value. But one thing I want to remind everybody, no matter where you are, you're hired to buy or sell a house. That's a baseline. That's base. So doing drone shots, Matterports, walkthroughs, all these high-res photos, hosting on YouTube, blah, 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 those are now expected of you. That doesn't set you apart. Mm-hmm. So doing things which I call unexpected extras sets you apart. So what kinds of things do you give to your client? Have you asked your client, client, why did you hire me? When I came in and did my listing presentation, what was it about me that set me apart? Because I maybe don't recognize that. So it doesn't hurt to go back and ask and say, what did I say to you that night that really triggered that you thought I was the right person? It might be you're an excellent negotiator. It might be that you take care of the dogs or the cats while the house is being shown. It might mean a lot of different things. Maybe you go in and turn all the lights on and fluff up the house and make sure the towels are off the floor and whatever it is. But what did I say to you that night that made you pick me? And the same could be held true if you don't get the listing. Ask for the education. Say, I'm really sorry I didn't get your listing tonight. How could I improve? Not what did I do wrong, no accusations, but how could I improve? How could I improve my talk with you that night? And I think if you go at it with a genuine heart, you'll get a genuine answer back, which is all very valuable to you. Yep. So again, there's so much that is expected and has to happen, baseline, but there's a lot that you can do that's extra. And you need to know what they are, and you need to hone in on those and articulate those in your print materials and in your pitch.
Oh, and I think, you hit, the key word for me there was articulate, because it's one thing to have that list, but it's another way to present it in such a way that shows the value. And so I think, we need to start first with what are the different value propositions? What are the things that you do offer? So, my advice to you is to write out a list of all the things you do for your clients. It's going to be a pretty big list. And so write out all those different things. And then look and say, okay, what does the average agent do and what do I do differently? Mm-hmm. And I know some people go, well, I can only think of 20 things. I'll tell you right now, I have a unique value proposition for RE/MAX that is like 5 pages long that goes through a lot of different areas in terms of technology, education, market share. I mean, on and on and on. And, we've created, even within our two brokerages, is created, a list of things that are, we provide or that the brokerages do that is above and beyond what the others do. And so it's important that you have that list. And so I'm going to encourage you, don't just stop at 20 or 30. Just think of all the different things that realtors do, all the little services, all the little things. Mm-hmm. We brought in a speaker, Lynn, I know you were there, when we had John, I think it was John from Ritz-Carlton. Mm-hmm. And
Casson.
And one thing that they do is they do go above and beyond, and they charge a premium, and they get the premium because people want that level of service. Mm-hmm. And so little things, we hear of these big corporations and big companies where, okay, somebody asks you where the washroom is, you take them towards it, you don't point, right? I think Disney has a thing, you don't point with it's the whole hand, or you take them towards there. You don't say no. You do everything you can to make things possible. You go above and beyond. And so if you want to create that level of service, what are the things that you are going to do to take it up a notch? So I might look and say, what does the average agent do when it comes to X? And then I'll take a look and then say, how can I take that up a notch? And so now it becomes unique because I'm providing something above and beyond what the others do.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first step, is really create that big list. And I know you have a huge list of, and you'll make that available. You guys can Tibor, TBORE at rmxemail.net. You can send in an email. We'll get that to you, and talk a little bit about your list and what you have.
Well, there's a lot of things on that list.
I'm not asking you because there's over
180 things on there. And it really does drill down. But yet it still in some ways forgets some things. Because it can go down to some great minutia, like you just said. Let me see what I can do for you. How may I serve you? I mean, just knowing the people's names, remembering their children's names, remembering their pets' names the next time you go there. That is an art form in of itself. Remembering their preferences. A lot of times you might be talking to clients that read certain books or like certain things. It's about paying attention to the tiniest of detail. I do a lot of recruiting for our company, and one of the things that's always the most amazing thing after is they say, well, we had no idea about all these other things. We do the big things, but we do a lot of little things that I even forget to say we do, because it would be a laundry list of things. But when they get here, sometimes it's the little things that really matter the most to them. The big ones, okay, you said we were doing that, we got those things, but it's that little thing. You hand delivered a check to us. When we made the mistake on our paperwork, you hand delivered the check to us that day because you wanted to help out. You have a team, you have yourself, you may have a team, but you definitely have your brokerage as a team. And you can lean on that as part of the things that you can provide and the services you can give. But I will tell you, the devil's in the details, and a lot of times it's the smallest things that make the biggest difference. But it starts with knowing, first of all, what it is you do, and then really drilling down to all the smallest, like that pinch of salt or that little bit of this or a little bit of that, the special ingredients that make you you and how you help the people. But again, language is really important. So when they come to you with a bunch of stuff and it seems impossible, don't say no, don't pull a face. Say, let me see how I can help you with that. Let me see what I can do. And genuinely mean it and go do it. So it's a lot of little things all together.
Yeah, no, huge. And it goes back to what I was saying about the needs and wants and the problems. And sometimes we focus, you hear there's a lot of different voices out there and talking about, marketing and let's focus on solving problems. And yes, a lot of that stuff, a lot of the marketing, you do want to focus on how you help solve problems, but those needs and wants you can't forget. And so, I know there's a number of you listening that have, when you got into the business, and I've asked a lot of agents, why did you get into this? And I hear a lot of people talking, Lynn, about how, well, when I went through real estate and I went through a purchase and a sale, and it's like my realtor, communication was crap, or they didn't do this, they didn't do that. And they said, I felt like there needed to be somebody to do that. And so there was something there that they didn't get. There was a need or want that wasn't met. And that actually made them get into the industry. Yeah. But it does show that we do have to address those little things. As Lynn said, those can be the biggest things, that those little things can make the biggest difference between you getting a deal and not getting a deal.
And keeping the client for life,
or
losing the client for life.
For sure. So
to your point, one of those little things is consistency, and it's called follow-up, and it's called doing what you said you were going to do, and that's a baseline. But just like saying please and thank you used to be a baseline, now it's extraordinary because people aren't always saying it, or they're not always following up, and they're not always being consistent. If you communicate with a client that every Thursday or every Friday or whatever the number of days is per week, you're going to contact them by text or however they like to be communicated with, when you do it, that builds stability, it builds trust, it builds all sorts of wonderful things. But the minute you break it, trust is the hardest thing to gain, and it's the easiest thing to lose. So you've always got to be really careful with that. Do what you say you're going to do, and be appreciative of it. And you won't go wrong. I mean, it really does work. Sometimes I feel like it's too simple, but it's hard doing all the right things.
Yep. Oh, it is. We all make mistakes. It happens to everybody. It happens to the best of us.
No.
Yeah.
I don't make mistakes.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. You know I'm kidding.
I
make
know
them all the time.
Exactly. And you address it, and you admit to it, and you move on. But
I'm just going to interrupt Eric for 1 second, because that is the biggest one. You own it. Mm-hmm. If I make a mistake, and I do, I own it. Mm-hmm. And that solves so much.
Huge.
It's a very little thing, but it's a big thing.
Huge. And I want to go back to, from the brokerage standpoint and from the team leader standpoint, and these things apply to you as well. We do meet with team. I meet with a lot of the people coming off our teams, come off a team looking for a new team, talking to them, what happened. The biggest thing that I see is, and even when somebody leaves another brokerage and comes over, is that they didn't see the value. A lot of times people are being asked to give up a percentage of their commission to that team leader, to the brokerage. And they go, but what am I getting in return? That's a common phrase we hear a lot. And it really goes to show, what value are you bringing? And I'm going to say this, is that I think in a lot of cases, the team leaders, the teams are providing value. They just forget to communicate it, because it's easy to be commonplace and forget about it. It's kind of like when somebody has, when you set a goal and they tell you, oh, put a Post-it note on your bathroom mirror. Well, after a while, that becomes invisible, because I've seen it so many times, I just forget it. And I know this happens. Just a quick side story, and I've told people this a lot of times, is I was working for a real estate lawyer who used to have billboards. And what happened was, he got a cheaper price because he allowed them to move him around. So when they had a break, like they had 3 months in between two different campaigns, he'd be there for 3 months and then moved over here. We had not had a billboard in 2 to 3 years. And I'd have somebody come, oh, I saw your billboard. No, you didn't. It got so commonplace that they didn't see it. And they thought they had, but it was never there.
Right.
So I know that it can be very commonplace, because you're going through these things all the time. You just assume that the team members know the value you're bringing. But I remember being at a teams conference, and this one team leader saying, you got to let them know, how much are you spending on coffee? How much, there's things
Cost.
You got to let them know what you're providing.
Yeah.
And they got to be reminded of that, because they forget. And if they're not reminded of the value, and they don't perceive a value, then that's when they leave. And it may be, it could be that you're not providing value. I'll say that. You got to really look at that. Are you providing the type of value that they need? And in some cases you are providing value, but they're not fully aware of it because they haven't been reminded. And I hate to say it, they do have to be reminded. Just like your clients have to be reminded. That's why you provide value every year, every month, or whatever your plan is, but you got to show the value. And I think that's to me is the one thing that a lot of people miss, is continuously show value and let them know about that value. From a broker, especially from a brokerage and from a team standpoint, you're going to lose some good people if you don't show the right value.
Again, we talked about it earlier. It goes back to asking if you've hit the mark or not. So when I recruit people and I bring them over, about 30 days in, we're going to ask for feedback. Did we do everything we said we were going to do? Are you satisfied with what we did? Thankfully, usually we've gone above and beyond what we said, because it's a lot, and they realize that. But a team leader can do the same thing. Every 3 months, perhaps, draw one of the team members in and say, have I done everything? Have we met the expectations that you thought being on my team was going to be? Do you see the value in my administrator? Do you see the value in my marketing department? Do you see the value in my training program we're doing? But if you don't ask, you don't know. And I think that's the biggest thing is people don't want to ask those questions because they're tough, because you might not get the answer you really like, but you're going to get the answer you need. And that's important. It might not be what you like, but you need it. And so again, it's about everybody knowing their value proposition. Are you providing that value proposition? Have you delivered on the value proposition? And then asking them, asking the team lead could ask the agent, am I the team you'd like to stay on? Is this working for you? Are you happy with our services? Same thing goes for the client with the consumer client. Ask if it was a good experience. How would you refer me to somebody else? What would you say about me? Because it might not be what you think it's going to be. It could be something different that you haven't even thought of. Maybe you didn't realize you were doing it, but you were doing it. So it's have a value proposition, practice it, be consistent, and then ask to learn more and improve. If you don't get the listing, it's not bad to go back and say, I'm so sorry, I didn't get your listing. How could I have done a better job of that? That would be the same thing for me with a recruit. How could I have done better? Why didn't you choose us? Why didn't you come with me? What did I mess up on? What didn't I say? Get the answer and then improve your value proposition.
And the key word there is ask.
Ask.
Ask. I know working with one of our teams, this was just over a year ago, and it was something that was ingrained in me from my sales training, was to ask your clients, your existing clients, as you mentioned earlier, why did you choose to work with me? Why are you working with me? And a lot of times you're surprised by the answer. And I had this team go out and ask their current clients and some of their friends and asking. And what was interesting to them was the response coming back. They thought it had something to do with money and the value. And it's like, no, you walk us through every step of the way. We don't know what to do first. And so you helped us understand the whole process. And that took them, it's like, oh, so then they changed up some of their branding and marketing. But one of my big questions that I ask every agent, so when you are talking to your friends and family, if you want to know, when we talk about needs, wants, and problems, I always say to them, go ask friends, family, current, your friends and family, and say, look, I know you're not looking to get into real estate now, but if you were to consider buying or selling in today's current market, what would be your biggest fear or worry? What would you need or want from your realtor? And then shut up and listen and take notes. And yes, people say to me sometimes, Lynn, they go, but they're going to get a lot of different answers. That's okay.
That's okay.
You're probably going to find a common theme.
Yeah.
Like what I find is there's usually a theme around that customer service or communication, whatever it is, you're going to find some common themes. And look, I said needs and wants. There's an S on the end. It's not singular. They have multiple needs, multiple wants, so it's okay to get multiple answers. But that's where you start saying, okay, how do I address those? So now, we talked about you're going to make that big list. Then you're going to go through that list and say, what do I do? On my list of things that I do, what's something that's above and beyond what the average agent does? So now that makes me a little more unique. And now I go back and so now we're looking at what these people have provided us and say, how am I addressing these needs and wants? How am I helping overcome the problems they perceive? Because to be honest, it's not what you perceive, it's what they perceive. Yeah. They are the client, they're the ones we're trying to get the business from. So, it's important that you understand their needs and wants. And then when it comes to your business, you say, okay, this is what I bring to the table, and understand your value and your worth. Never, 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 and we always talk, this is such a mindset game, but I just want to emphasize here, as just popped in my head as I'm saying this, is never be of the mindset that you're not worthy. All of you bring something to the table. I don't care if you're a newer agent, a more experienced agent, you all bring something to the table. That newer agent, the hungriness, the energy, the enthusiasm for the business. It's amazing. And so you can bring some new ideas, new concepts that in your market, you may find that nobody's doing this, and you go, well, why is nobody doing this? Don't care. Find out, if you want to do it, do it. If it goes above and beyond what everybody else is doing, fine. you're going to stand out. So that's my little thoughts on it.
Yeah, absolutely. All of the above. There's so many different things there. But just to go back to your point, clients and agents. And when I'm saying clients, I'm not just necessarily meaning the consumer that's purchasing. I'm meaning my clients. My agents are my clients. A team leader's clients are also his team as well. So clients can always tell you what they don't like. That thing number one is easy. They can tell you what went wrong. Nobody called me. Nobody followed up. I never heard from them again. They stuck a sign in the lawn and then they disappeared. You know, you can hear all that. And then the very act of asking them how they thought you performed in either your listing presentation or while you're doing whatever you're doing with them, but the very act of asking them makes them feel valued, makes them feel important. And one of the things we forget to tell people is how valued they are to us. And I think when they know they're valued and you're listening and you genuinely care and they can see some movement in it, it makes all the difference in the world. And you didn't get that listing maybe tonight, but they've got a friend and family member who might say, look, I know you're thinking of buying or selling, and this great gal or guy was in last night. I didn't give him ours, but you know what? They called me today and they really want to make a difference, and I think there's somebody that could work with you. So please don't shut the door on those relationships by just not asking questions, because that's what you're doing. You always want to keep the door open for lots of relationships and how you can help somebody. And you have to believe that you can help them. You are actually the right person for them and you can do a good job for them. So very important to ask questions, make people feel valued, and talk. I mean, that is the thing that solves all things. You know, you may not sell a property and the whole deal may go sideways, but if you take ownership of it and you talk through it, you may not get that transaction, but you'll keep that client and that client's 280 relationships as well. That's the key to this, is keeping all the people.
Yeah, and you know, do not be afraid to ask.
No.
Do not be afraid to share what your value is. And you know, I'm sitting here thinking, I know there's going to be some people go, you know, I don't want to brag, like I feel like I'm bragging. No, you're stating what you do and what you provide, and do not, you know, as we said, don't discount the little things, because the little things matter very much to a lot of people. Yeah. So it's key. I get it. It's you know, some people look at it and go, do I really have to do this exercise? It's a bit of work, and I get it. It is. It is a bit of work. But when you take a little bit of time, if you sat there, give yourself a time limit and say, look, in 10 minutes or 5 minutes, I got to write down as many things as I can, think about it. You can ask us. We'll give you that list of 180 things, and you can build upon that. But it's taking that and then saying, okay, let me go now, take another few minutes and just go over, what do I feel that the average agent doesn't do that's on this list? That's my unique value proposition. So that allows me to show the value that I bring to the table. And that's important, because when you can show the value, and that's what people buy. People buy on value, not so much price. Because to be honest, there are people that go, if you had lots of money, they could buy a certain vehicle, a certain jacket, purse, shoes, you name it, electronic item. They go for, where do I see the value? And the value may be making them feel, you know, for some people it's, I gotta have the top thing because I gotta be seen as one of the people that has the latest and greatest, or the high-end quality. But then there are also a lot of people that go, I see value in this. And that's what they buy. If they don't perceive a value, they're not buying. Plain and simple.
Yeah. And your competence could be part of the value.
Yeah.
So you have to be perceived as caring, trustworthy, steadfast, but you also have to be competent at what you do. So a lot of the things that you provide to your clients will show your competence. There's a lot of pieces that you can rely on to show that. But all those things are very important. I just hesitate to say, I know you're number one. You're all number one in my books. But you can't go in with that as your opening pitch. It won't go far.
But my favorite was on the back of a bus is number one. And of course, you always have to put the little asterisk and say below why, like where that information came from, as voted by his mom.
Yeah.
So I thought that was funny. It was a good take on that. But yeah. It's so true. I know that for awards, and every brokerage has their own level of
That's
awards, and ours starts at executive and moves its way up. And
Yeah.
I remember giving an agent brought in a family member, and they didn't really know much about real estate. And I said, at that day, for whatever reason, I said, I'm just curious. I'm going to give you all these different award names in random. And they were put out there in random. I said, which one do you think is the highest level? And they picked executive, which is our lowest. So it just goes to show that the public really doesn't
They don't know. And they don't care.
And they don't care.
They really don't care.
And so using that, nobody really cares. What do they care about? They care that you can sell and market their home. They care that you can get the job done and communicate and keep them involved in the process and let them know what's happening. That's what they really care about. So really take the time, develop your unique value proposition, do the lessons, do the work, and don't be afraid to share that value. And don't be afraid to ask. So as you're trying to get it, ask others, right? As Lynn said, that's the key, is asking for that. So we hope that we've given you enough value in today's episode. Little segue there.
Good segue, yes.
So we hope you've gotten enough value here in terms of trying to develop that unique value proposition. We appreciate if you've been with us. We've gone through a dozen episodes now. And if you've been following and watching every one, we so appreciate you. Like we said, please, we have an email, Tbore, Tbore at rmxemail.net. Please send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Any ideas? We've got a lot of ideas, hundreds of ideas, but we want to know what you want us to talk about, because this is really about you, about the agents, right?
Yeah.
So we'd love to hear from you. Subscribe, listen to us. We are on, we're trying to grow the number of channels we're on. We're on about 20 different channels, including Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, etc. Please subscribe, follow along, and thank you so much, everybody. Have yourselves a great week, and we'll see you next week on the business of real estate.
Take care. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Lynn.